What can history tell us about the recent Kentucky Derby winners to help you pick a winner for this year's Kentucky Derby?
Trust the Profits is proud to be sponsored by Game of Silks. Go to silks.io to get in the game. Real ownership, real races, real rewards.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Pellerin, aka Horse Guy Mike, and today we're going to be looking at some popular trends from recent history of the Kentucky Derby winners to see which horses in this year's field kind of fit those trends of a typical Kentucky Derby winner. We're going to be looking at 5 key trends, looking back to the year 2000 to see what do these horses that are winning the Kentucky Derby have in common. Look at some outliers, say how did those outliers come to be, and which horses in this year's field kind of fit the mold of a traditional Kentucky Derby winner to help you pick a winner when you're betting on that first Saturday in May. So with further ado, let's go ahead and look at some of the previous winners of this. I know it's going to be kind of hard to see here. Here's the data going back all the way to year 2000, all the different Kentucky Derby winners. And I'll have this on my Twitter as well. Follow me along at Horse Guy Mike on Twitter. I'll post this and have this pinned every single year. But looking back to the year 2000 all the way to last year, 2023, this list is looking at the horse that crossed the line first, not the official winner. So for our purposes here, we are looking at Medina Spirit instead of Mandaloon, and we are looking at Maximum Security instead of a Country House. We are also not taking into effect the 2020 Kentucky Derby that took place in September, because that data point is completely different. Race was completely different than any other race. So we're just not even including that in our data set here. So looking in that first column, we have the year. Second column, we have the horse that crossed the line first. Third column, we have their morning line, posted morning line. Fourth column, we have their final odds, what odds they actually went off at the time, at post time, not post time, at when the gates opened. Their fifth column is their Brisnet running style. And we'll talk a little bit more about Brisnet running style on the next page as well. Next column after that is their 3 most recent buyer speed figures. Column after that is their career record, as well as their 3-year-old record. What their last prep before the Kentucky Derby was, who their jockey and trainer were, what the track conditions were, and where they were at the final call, at the stretch call, on the results chart. Where were they in the race? So just looking at that, let's go ahead and start that last column there. Stretch position. There's kind of this myth that deep closers do really well in the Derby, and the last 2 years have kind of added fuel to that fire. We had the biggest upset in Kentucky Derby history 2 years ago with Rich Strike just closing from out of the clouds. But even then, looking at this chart, he was third when they hit the stretch. He was not, chugging along from dead last, making up a ton of lengths in the stretch. He was already there. He cut the corner. He was already in third when they hit the stretch. He was able to power home. So we're looking at horses who are going to be not necessarily forwardly placed, but be in a spot to have that good position moving forward. So looking at recent history, the last 2 years we would consider essentially to be outliers. Both Mage and Rich Strike were longer shots who came from off the pace. But you'll see that Mage actually fits a traditional winner a lot better than Rich Strike does. Looking at our trends, Mage would actually look like someone we would consider to be a winner. The other big outliers we have here, going back to the year 2005, was Giacomo, who came from terrible 4th place finish in the Santa Anita Derby, 50-1 odds, won that race. We've got Mind That Bird, 4th place in the Sunland Derby. His story is so wild, they even made a movie of it, 50-1. Kind of a strange movie, but I love seeing it. They got a real nice villain in that movie. In case you haven't looked at it, go ahead and check that out. Animal Kingdom is another longer shot, 30-1. What ended up going off at 21-1. Coming off of the Spiral Stakes. I believe that's the Jeff Ruby Stakes now. So most of the horses that are winning the Kentucky Derby are not these huge long shots. Looking at their odds here, you'll see the majority of them are under 15-1 with a field of 20 horses. You're only getting in each Kentucky Derby about probably 4 or 5 horses that are about 15-1 or under, maybe 6 horses around there. Most of them are going to be just gigantic long shots. And then the overwhelming majority of these winners are going to have a specific style to them. So looking at this chart, and we can come back to this if we want to. But let's go ahead and look at what my top 5 trends are and say how these winners have fit into there. So the first trend we want to look at is their running style. And I've got listed here E or EP Brisnet style. And for those of you who don't know or are not familiar with it, Brisnet gives every single horse a style of running, with an E style being you're on the lead, you're either in first or second the entire race, going gate to wire. EP style is a little bit more tactical, has the ability to be on the lead, but usually sits about second, third, or fourth, maybe hits first or second when they hit the stretch. A P style, kind of your mid-pack pressing horse, more not necessarily all the way in the back, but can be all the way back or can be kind of towards the last 3/4 of the pack. And then an S style are those horses who come from dead last. Think of Rich Strike. He was a dead last closer. Those kind of one run, just close into it all at the end. So S style. 17 of the last 23 Derby winners have been an E or EP style horse. And one of the big things that we always talk about with the Derby is the amount of horses in this race. 20 horses going at it. We don't always get that full field, but 20 horses is a lot to overcome from a traffic scenario. If you're a deep closer, you're going to need to avoid the rail, avoid getting pinned in. We saw some horses last year who had great styles, a horse like Tapit Trice, who kind of got pinned in, had nowhere to go. So these closers don't have necessarily the tactical speed to get into a good position early. You would like to see one of these closers, either a P or an S style, drawn maybe to the outside to where they can avoid kickback, avoid traffic issues, and have a clear lane to move in. I mean, Rich Strike was able to squeeze in on the rail, but again, looking at 23 years of history, Rich Strike is the extreme outlier, and you can't go basing Derby trends off of one horse, even though it was recency bias. So looking at the trends, most of these horses who are winning, 17 of the last 23, have been front runners, either on the lead or sitting in that second call, third place, fourth place. And all of them are in first or second when they hit that stretch. Only one horse in the last 23 years was worse than third when they hit the stretch. And that was Jacoma, who was sixth when they hit the stretch. So you want a horse that's going to be tactically placed forwardly. So look their E or EP style horse. Next up, we want to have a horse that's had at least a 95 or better Beyer speed figure. And I know some people swear by Beyer. Some people think they're overrated. That's neither here nor there. It is a nice baseline to kind of start your handicapping from, just by saying, hey, this horse has a higher Beyer than this horse. It does not mean that horse is necessarily always going to win. But in general, horses that have higher Beyer speed figures are typically faster than those who do not. 19 of the last 23 winners have had a 95 Beyer or better in their career. Again, only 4 have not. Those 4 being Made last year did not. He had a 94, though, so he's very close. Rich Strike, our extreme outlier. Mind That Bird, we talked about it. And I can't even see who the other one would. Oh, Animal Kingdom. So 3 of the extreme outliers. Traditionally, though, you're going to see horses who have had at least 95 Beyer speed figure coming into this race. Third trend we want to look at is first or second place in their final prep coming into this race. Horses that are finishing third or fourth in their final prep, usually those 100-point preps, aren't coming in to win. They are, filling out the superfecta, the trifecta. They're very good horses to kind of play underneath. But most of these horses that are winning this race are coming off of first or second places in their last race. 20 of the last 23 races have had these horses coming out first or second in their final prep. The next one we want to look at is raced at 2 years old. And for the longest time, this wouldn't even be a prep. It would just be an unspoken rule. You would never take a horse that has not raced at 2 years old. The Curse of Apollo was broken a number of years ago in 2018 with Justify. Again, last year with Mage. So it's becoming less of a certainty, more of, hey, let's evaluate this and see if, there's extenuating circumstances here. but 21 of the last 23 have raced at 2. And for every single other winner before that also applied. Only 2 horses in the entire history, that being Justify and Mage, did not race at 2 and won, but having 2 in the last 6 years, maybe it's not necessarily as much of a trend, but still something to look at. You want some horses that are a little bit more seasoned. So something to look at there. And then the last one as well, you want your last prep to be on dirt. And this is kind of a kind of niche trend as well, where there's really only one prep that this would disqualify, and that would be the Jeff Ruby Stakes, which is run on synthetic. You can also apply to horses who are running on turf, but if you're getting Derby points, you're going to be running on dirt. But again, only 2 horses have come out of the Jeff Ruby Stakes and win, looking at Rich Strike and looking at Animal Kingdom in the Spiral Stakes. So only that race has only produced 2 winners. We see that synthetic has typically translated more to turf racing and not dirt racing. So success on synthetic doesn't necessarily yield success on the dirt. Although last year we did have 2 fills who did also come out of that Jeff Ruby Stakes. I believe got second, had a really high speed figure, looked great in that race. So maybe it's changing. The horse coming out of that race this year endlessly might not even run in the Kentucky Derby. The trainer seems to prefer turf, but the owner's kind of pushing for the dirt. Just something to think about looking forward. So looking at these trends, looking back at the past 23 years, 14 of the 23 winners have had all 5 of these trends apply to them. 5 of the winners have had 4 of the 5 apply to them. So that's 19 of the 23 winners right there. 3 out of 5, only 1 winner. 2 out of 5, 2 winners. And then Rich Strike coming up the rear with only 1 of 5 trends applying to him. So let's look at this year's field. How do our horses stack up here? So first, number 1 on the list, we've got Fierceness. Fierceness is your likely favorite. Everything's going to be going right for this horse. Last prep was on dirt, had a really impressive 13-length victory in the Florida Derby. Has that E-style, E8, pure front-running style. Had a 110 buyer last out. Was a champion at 2 years old. Won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So everything that we've talked about here applies to Fierceness. And so it's kind of a long-winded video to say, hey, go on and bet the favorite. He's the likely winner. But looking at these historical Derby trends, he does fit the mold of what your prototypical Derby winner would look like. Now, we've seen the past 2 years, the pace up front has been very, very hot. Last year, where they went 22-1, but then they went 45-1 for the half. Insanely fast. The year before that, they went 21-3. They went 45-1. Insanely fast for the half. So, Fierceness, being a need the lead type horse, is going to face some pressure. There's a lot of EP style horses in this race who are going to want to be forwardly placed. We've seen speed coming from the Japanese horses before. I don't believe Forever Young is going to be attacking this lead. I think he's going to be a little bit more tactical. But Tio Password, I don't know a lot about him. We've seen the kind of speed coming over from Japan. We've seen some of these other horses like Dornock, Just a Touch, Stronghold. They're going to be forwardly placed. So we've seen Fierceness fail to perform in the Fountain of Youth or in the Holy Bull when things didn't go his way. There's a chance. But looking at this trends video, he fits all 5 categories. He is the only one to fit all 5 categories. Looking at Sierra Leone, fits 4 of the 5. The only one he doesn't, not an EP style runner. He is a pure S0 style runner. He will be coming from out of the clouds. Very impressive horse. Both him and Catching Freedom, they're going to be coming from way far back. Hopefully one of them can avoid traffic trouble. But if you're looking for the best closer, it's Sierra Leone. If you're looking for the best front runner, Fierceness. They seem to be kind of head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd. Stronghold, not good on the speed figures perspective. Has never hit that 95 buyer. I believe his buyer was 89 for his Santa Anita Derby, which is not impressive to jump up. You're going to need probably 100 buyer or so for this race to win, at least. So to jump up from an 89 to a 100 plus is a significant jump. He's got some good styles there. I'm just not that impressed by him. Catching Freedom, again, same thing as Sierra Leone. Their speed figures have been very, very similar. Just they're both dead closers. And then Resilience, a little bit interesting. Similar to Stronghold, has that EP style, prepped at the Wood, won it very impressively, raced at 2. But even in that impressive Wood victory, he only got a 90 buyer for it. Although his Brisnet and some of his other speed figures have come back pretty high. The one that we do want to point out here, though, is Forever Young. And this is the Japanese horse winner of the UAE Derby. Now, technically, he does not hit all 5 because they do not categorize buyer speed figures overseas, and they don't assign Brisnet running styles. But you have to assume, having watched his UAE Derby, he is very tactically forwardly placed. In that UAE Derby, I think he was second when they hit the stretch, powered home, won very impressively. So I would make the assumption that he would be an E or an EP style horse. I would also assume that his performances would have earned him a 95 buyer. So I will unofficially state that Forever Young is an also 5 out of 5 for this purpose here, to go along with Fierceness. But he has the other trend going against him where no Japanese horse has ever won the Kentucky Derby. He could be the first. Just like Justify and Mage breaking the curse of Apollo. Some Japanese horse has to win eventually, you think. And Forever Young looks to be the best they've ever sent. We talked about Endlessly. Didn't prep on dirt. Doesn't have the EP style. Has never hit 95. A lot going against this horse. Dornoch has the style. Has not hit that speed figure this year. And then got 4th last out. Couldn't even hit the board in that final prep in the Bluegrass. Still going to be up against it. Just the Touch is an interesting one. Last prep was on dirt. Got 2nd in that Bluegrass behind Sierra Leone. Has that front running style. The thing that's going against Just a Touch, though, this horse did not race at 2. Has only raced at 3. But as we mentioned earlier, with Mage, with Justified, is this as big a deal as it was in the past? Maybe, maybe not. He looks to be improving. He looks very similar to Mage. They both had 3 starts before the Derby. They're both improving, kind of hitting their form at the right exact time. So if you like Just a Touch, you're going to get a good price on him. And I think 4 out of 5, with that 5th one being kind of iffy, he could be worth a shot there. Track Phantom. Speed figure has not been there this year. He's got that style, but again, well beaten 4th, or was it 3rd? Yeah, 3rd in Louisiana Derby. So I'll be passing on Track Phantom. Then as we get further down, most of these horses just aren't hitting it. Honor Marie. Honor Marie, I don't know why there's an X there. Honor Marie is a deep closing style. It's an S, I think. I'm not sure. This might be wrong. But Honor Marie does have the speed figure, does have a race at 2, got 2nd in that Louisiana Derby. Just Steel has raced 11 times. This horse is an absolute monster, or machine. He's not a monster. He's not that great. But did have that 2nd impressive performance in the Arkansas Derby. Catalytic got 2nd behind Fierceness, well beaten. Only a 90 buyer in that race, but really nothing to chase into. He knew he was well beaten by Fierceness. If he was racing hard for 2nd, maybe he could have gotten higher. Domestic Product, another one who looked impressive. I thought he would come back after that Tampa Derby and go to the Bluegrass or somewhere else, but I guess Chad knew he had Sierra Leone, so he just wanted Domestic Product to train up to it. But speed figure's not there. I'm not really going to mention anyone else here down at the bottom. They're all, around that 3 out of 5 category, and you've seen only one winner has been 3 out of 5. The majority being 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. So, looking at this trends wise, I think Fierceness had to put on top, obviously, with Sierra Leone, Catching Freedom, Resilience, and Just a Touch being the other ones I'd want from this, just from an overall trends perspective, and Forever Young, if we want to look at it that way. So looking, is there any other trends that we want to look at? Let's see. Undefeated at 3. 12 of the last 23 horses were undefeated at 3, and 18 of the last 22 have had a morning line of 15 to 1 or lower. So as I said, fish for long shots. Try to find your rich strike if you want to. Just know, overwhelming majority of these horses, they're going to be one of the top five betting choices. Just kind of look at those top 5, see which one you like the best, and go from there. Not saying don't fish for long shots. Not saying that. Hopefully you can find one, especially underneath, because this really only applies to the winner. Those underneath shots, anything can happen. The long shots get 2nd, 3rd, 4th all the time. I've seen some huge superfectas in recent years. So If you're looking for a Derby winner, easiest way to do it, just look at one of the top 5 horses and then kind of go from there. If you want to dig deeper into it, you can. This is really more helpful for eliminating horses that you can absolutely just write off. But again, we've seen the past 2 years, Mage 15-1 fits into some of these categories. He was 3 out of 5, and he was 15-1, so barely would have hit there. And he was categorized as an EP, but he really came from back further. So even though Brisbane had him categorized as an EP, I believe later on in the year they recategorized him as a P or an S style. So it's up to you. Take this information, evaluate it on your own. Do not take my word for it. I'm not telling you here to pick Fierceness, pick Sierra Leone, pick Catching Freedom. Just giving my opinions on what the data has looked like for the past 23 years. Take with it, run with it, and see what you find yourself. So follow along the rest of what we're putting out for the Trusted Profits channel. We have a lot of Derby content coming out. I will be posting this on my Twitter, my X page, at Horse Guy Mike, with all the data there. So you can go ahead and check this out for yourself. Go ahead, comment down below if you think these trends are overrated, what trends you like to look for, and if you think there's a change in the way that the running style is leaning with a little bit more speed catching up with these horses. Make sure to like and subscribe, comment below, follow me on Twitter, and let me know who your pick for the Kentucky Derby is. All right, take care, everyone. Good luck, and may the juleps be with you.